So unfortunately, I actually recorded this, two-part video days ago, but due to just some heavy medical issues, it's taking me longer to edit and upload or whatever. Thought I should just detail this out. Part one is really just about the spark that kind of ignited this, the ridiculous, confusing, misunderstanding spark that's left me upset. But part two outlines I'm not necessarily hurt by the fact that by the breakup per se. Yes, that's painful, but it's always painful regardless of who you are. It's that this person understands the difficulties that I have with attachment and understands the feelings or fears I have with abandonment. And given that, they still decided to take the route that they did by not communicating, not saying their intentions, not informing me, and it left me thinking the entire time that we were working towards something in the end, when in reality, they had moved on and started dating somebody else. Not only that, but I've been going through so many different hardships that this person knows. Like, this person knows I've been going through them. They know, they've seen how it has affected me. They see the trouble that it's caused, and they left during that time without questioning it, without asking me how I was feeling, how I was doing, without checking up. And regardless if it's right or wrong, because maybe it's not their job to check up on me and to not take care of me, but it's still triggering and really pulling on those strings or in fears of abandonment, because it's like in my worst times, in my worst days, this person left in such a way that, simulates how my mom would leave or how people in my life would leave without saying anything, without any communication. The real kicker being that this person is fully aware of what triggers me and has done something similar in the past, and I've explained to them that it was triggering. And then it happens again. So it's like, did this person ever really care? Because I've been cycling feeling really angry at this person, feeling really hurt by this person, confused in my own mind because I want to assign blame. I'm like, is it my fault? Is it their fault? Should I be angry at them? Should I be angry at myself? Just to kind of jump right into it, the person that I was having some severe feelings over in terms of cutting off that relationship, separating, breaking up, whatever you want to call it, I essentially, for all intensive purposes, got back together with them. So, dating this person, we decided, or I guess they decided, quote unquote, that we would give it not another go. That wasn't exactly what we were doing. I don't really know what the fuck we were doing. We were doing everything but putting a name on it, if that makes sense. So hanging out, doing like all of the intimate, like personal, lovey-dovey type of crap. And only grew to become more and more intense as we ramped up towards the holidays. They went home for the holidays, and they actually came back to Atlanta early because things were going so well that we would spend, New Year's together, and then just some more time before their school started. I think it's just important to start with, as well as what kind of set the catalyst off for how this all ended. This video has so many different clips in it because I've recorded it 1,000 different times. I have way too many emotions that it makes it hard to all get out, so I apologize for that, y'all. To explain the catalyst for everything that's happened in this, beginning with the first, there's 3 people involved in this story. There's my ex, which I will call Apple. There's my good friend from college, who is going to be called Celery. And then there's this other person who is more of an acquaintance. I've only hung out with them twice, and we really aren't close at all because I just don't know them. Since the beginning of our relationship, Apple has always been sketched by the idea that I would be cheating on them. They always thought that I was either talking to people behind their back or just flat out cheating. That was never the case. I never did, and most times there was never any evidence or any substantiation that would have led to that belief. The only times that there might have been something, and we talked about it multiple times, and we both engaged in these practices, was that, in the moments when we were repairing our relationships, or when it was kind of rocky, or when we didn't really know what we were, that's when we would engage in these things. Essentially, 2 weeks ago, I was engaged in conversations, texting conversations with Celery and with Orange, both of which were very, very similar. However, one conversation was fake and one conversation was real, essentially. The real conversation was with my good friend Celery. We had planned on going to lunch later that week and catching up because they were in Atlanta and we haven't seen each other in a while. As it goes for Orange, we also had the same kind of plans, but when I say we had the same plans, they were fake plans, basically, in line with the fact that I crave attention and that because I'm afraid of being abandoned, I had been using Orange sort of for that extra affirmation that people like me and that I'm needed and that I'm wanted. And ever since November, because we only really hung out once, they have been texting me to hang out. They have been sending me flirtatious, nice text messages. Nothing too serious, and for me to feel that extra security, if that makes sense. Again, it's all related to my fears of being abandoned, and directly correlated as well to Apple in the sense that we weren't officially back together. And there have been some instances, like in November, before all of this happened, where I found out that they were engaged with other people, even though we had gotten pretty close. So they had basically had sex with somebody else. And I just felt as though because we weren't official, I don't know. I felt as though because we weren't official and because that transpired, it was just, I really needed that extra affirmation on my side, and a host of other different reasons. It's not just because of that instance. It's also just because of who I am and the trauma that I've experienced, and I have a problem with that and I'm trying to get better at it. So in regards to these conversations, I made plans with Orange, as I always had been doing. We would text, they would beg to hang out, and I would say yes, after fishing for compliments and fishing for other niceties that would make me feel better. But we literally had been doing this since November and hadn't seen each other. And I had no plans, I had no plans of seeing them, and I had no plans of seeing them. I was, it's sad to say, or unfortunate to say, I was just kind of stringing them along because I knew that after a month or so of them still trying to make plans with me and being okay with me canceling each time, that, they were maybe a bit obsessive is the wrong word, but I felt comfortable in the sense that I don't have to do anything with this person or anything more besides say yes in a text message. So we had made tentative plans. Those plans were concurrent to the actual real plans I made with Celery. The problem with that is that Apple happened to see my phone and text messages between me and Orange that described, me going to go have lunch with Orange, or the plans of having lunch with Orange, all of which would have been the same day as me going to go hang out with Celery. So to Apple, it looked as though I was lying about this and that I was actually going to go see Orange and had no idea or no plans with Celery. This was, further proved, which, it's not proved, but because in regards to my relationship, or lack thereof, with Orange, whenever those plans would sort of fall apart, it would either be me ghosting Orange and not responding to the messages of details about hanging out, or me just saying I can't hang out, or Orange saying that they can't hang out. Either way, there was always some reason as to why it wouldn't work out, and I always made sure there was a reason because I just wasn't that interested. For 2 weeks ago, the excuse with Orange was that Orange's mom had COVID, so of course Orange was exposed and therefore had to cancel. Not that any of that matters, it's just a small detail because it was going to be canceled anyway, or I was just going to ghost in the conversation. However, with Celery, those plans were very real. I really was planning on hanging out with Celery, and I told Apple that. The unfortunate circumstance is that I decided at the last minute to cancel my plans with Celery, with all the intention of hanging out with my friend. The problem was that the reasoning I gave Apple was actually Orange's reasoning. I told Apple that Celery's mom had COVID. Why I did that, I have no idea. I should have just said that I wasn't really feeling up to it and I was feeling down, and I just didn't want to hang out with Celery. Originally, I think I sent a text message in the car and I just wasn't trying to explain how I was feeling depressed and all of that, so I sent a very
Easy explanation, you know, Celery's mom has COVID. No explanation needed. It was a lie, but it was like such a white lie that it did nobody wrong. The point was is that I wasn't going to be hanging out with Celery, which meant that I could therefore hang out with Apple. Orange within all of this wasn't even crossing my mind because it just never was going to happen. And I didn't think that using Orange's excuse was a bad thing. Because Apple knew about my fake plans, thinking they were real with Orange, Apple also knew about Orange's mom excuse. So when I used that with Celery, it basically looked as though I never had plans with Celery to begin with, and I was always going to go see Orange because that's where the details lined up to. And that's the source of why Apple just lost it and didn't trust me, and where everything sort of just deteriorated. So that's the unfortunate circumstance, and it really hurts because it's so stupid. All of this, it hurts a lot just because, I mean, it was basically my fault in the sense that if I had just said something differently or just said what was actually going on, waited to send the text message and not have had anxiety over having to explain that I was depressed and I didn't want to go hang out with my friends, I don't know what was going on in my mind. If I just went down that course, then, you know, maybe we wouldn't be here. Additionally, if I didn't feel the need to have these extra securities, which for the most part are harmless, you know, it's not me engaging in or infidelity, but it's more so me accepting it, which is entertaining. I guess it could be just as bad. If I didn't do that with Orange to begin with, maybe this all wouldn't have happened at all. But that's something that I've worked on throughout my life, and it's gotten better. It's just not quite there, so that's a bigger issue. And I also understand that it's a little fucked up to be stringing somebody along just for the attention. What hurts in all of this, though, is that Apple never believed me and used that as a reasoning for why we shouldn't be together. Apple called me some very unnice names. He said that, you know, I was always having some excuses and always lying to them, and that there's always something going on. And I didn't understand that. One, because I explained what I just explained to y'all, to Apple, and Apple said that was a bullshit excuse and that it sounded fake. And that, you know, it does sound weird, but like everything with me sounds weird. I have anxieties, I have bipolar disorder, I have OCD, I have blah, 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 I have traumas, I have all of the above, and, you know, nothing with me is simple. So I thought by explaining my thought process, no matter how out there it was, it would make sense. And I was able to do that very quickly because I was like, oh, damn it, I can now see why you would think that. I'm sorry, let me explain. That didn't work out in my favor. Even more so, the whole thing just feels like I just don't understand what happened. It's as though I did something in the past that, you know, kind of represents this, and that's not true. Like, I've never cheated. I've never done anything along the lines that would make me suspicious. I didn't understand what Apple meant by saying that there's always something and that I'm always lying. And the only thing I can think about is that for the entirety of our relationship, from the very beginning, Apple was always concerned that I was off with somebody else, doing something else, and I never was. And at that point, it's like, I can't help, like, what am I supposed to do if you don't believe me? And I'm trying to show you why you should be believing me. The real, like, just thing in this and just that's killing me inside is that I'm angry because while I was accused of all these things that just were not true, Apple has engaged in so many practices that, you know, actually do provide substantiation for sketch-ass shit. In November, you know, Apple had sex with somebody else, and they described it in the same way that I did, that, you know, they were feeling lonely and they wanted to be close to somebody, and that we weren't necessarily together. But we were more together in November than we had been in a while, though. And it wasn't, for all intensive purposes, we're together, just without the name. I mean, when you're spending the night at people's places, like 3 to 4 times out of the week, going on dates and all of that, and just the emotions were there, you are together. So I felt like kind of just like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything, and you're yelling at me and calling me out of my name when you were the one who literally had sex with somebody else. And it was confusing because I just didn't understand, like, where all this was coming from, / why it couldn't be talked about. You know, we had gone through so much, and it was like, this is the thing that this thing isn't even real, and it's coming up. Like, none of this is even real, and this is what ends everything. So, and it felt almost like, different expectations, a double standard, because, hello, I hadn't had sex with somebody else and then didn't say anything about it. It was just, you know what I'm saying? On top of that, if we go back even further this year in October, Apple was dating somebody else as well. And this was before we had gotten, maybe a little bit more closer together. But Apple was dating somebody else. So then I started talking to other people. I wasn't dating anybody, but talking to other people. And Apple got mad at me then. Apple got mad that, I was hanging out with Apple as well as other people. And I told Apple, I'm like, hey, you can't date people yourself and then get mad at me for dating other people. Like, that's just a double, you're not holding me to the same expectations. But they got furious at me then. And then after that conversation in October, like after we talked about not having different expectations for each other, Apple then proceeded to have sex in November, which I didn't get mad about because we weren't together, but it was kind of just like, didn't we just have this conversation? If you feel uncomfortable with me talking to other people and doing stuff, then why would you go ahead and continue to do that? Which is why I say, for all intents and purposes, like after that conversation, if we both feel uncomfortable with it, then we're basically together, right? So after everything that's happened, it's like, this is what ends the relationship. It's just really disheartening. And even furthermore, just the way it happened. It wasn't just that it ended the relationship. It was that it then transpired to Apple basically ghosting me for the longest period of time. And that hurt more than anything, because it's like, I explained to them my abandonment issues and everything in the fall and how I was going through it, having panic attacks, and just really reliving all of this trauma from being abandoned because of the way they had left before. And we had agreed that, we'll still talk to each other, we'll still do whatever. And I'm not saying that Apple had any obligation to always talk to me for the rest of my life. It's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that there should have been some communication where at least it was indicated to me that, hey, I don't think I want to talk to you anymore. Or like, hey, this is what's going on. I had no idea what was going on. I hadn't talked to Apple in like 2 weeks. And then the first thing I find out is that Apple's dating somebody else. And it's just, I was angry at first, and now it's me spiraling. And I'm just, with everything else going on in my life, I'm really just concerned about like my involuntary emotions and what is going to happen to my brain, in the sense that, like, how am I going to start feeling? There's been a few times today where I've had anxiety. There's been a few times today where I haven't had panic attacks, but I've started to have these anxiety attacks, and just being really over the idea that this is all just like so perfect, in the sense that it's so stupid. It all is just very coincidental, and it's like the perfect things had to have happened to lead to this, and I just don't understand. And more so of me is hurt because Apple knows all of these things and continues to do them. They know I have abandonment issues, but they still ghosted me, ignored my phone calls, didn't even have the decency to say anything, until I eventually texted them, not about us being together, but texted them saying like, hey, are you okay? I'm checking in to see if you're okay. And instead of just saying like, yeah, I'm doing fine, or I don't know, anything else, they were like, I'm fine. Also, I'm seeing somebody new. It's like, that's not how you respond. Or at least I don't think it is, right? Personally, I've never really been attacked emotionally on purpose, or I've never had somebody attack me trying to harm me, especially not somebody that is supposed to love me. Not on purpose, at least, So I'm struggling with that. And all the facts kind of lead me to believe that this person, because of their knowledge behind, like, they knew what they were doing, it's like they, one, didn't care about me, and two, they did this for a reason. And that's what hurts the most. After everything that's gone on between us, how do you go from less than a month ago in December saying we discussed possibly making things more official and moving forward with our relationship, to then it deteriorating within a few days, and to me being a liar and being the worst person ever, ghosting me, and then dating somebody, all within such a short time frame. Like, the facts and the timelines don't match up. It's like, were you talking to this person beforehand? Or were you... It's just leaving a lot of, like, questions in me that have honestly, like, first made me just really angry, like I said, and then now it's just deteriorating me emotionally.